It's no secret that we're living in a digital age and that our planet is in trouble. Generation Z will be the next generation to take over as our future leaders and presidents. What will the future hold? So we conducted interviews with people around us who we found interesting and who would have a valuable opinion on the situation. So you're in Gen Z. So the people that you're friends with and that you go to school with and the people that are your age are going to be the next world leaders and presidents. Do you feel like safe knowing that your age group is going to be the future?
I mean, if I just look at my school, the people I know, then no, I don't feel safe. But I know that there's like millions and millions of other kids that potentially could be like leaders or whatever. So like, no, I'm scared if I'm just looking at like the kids I know because they're stupid. But like, if I look at like everyone, then no, then I'm not like worried.
So from like a kid's perspective, what would you say is the best way for parents to like approach their children's social media use?
Well, if I was like parenting some kid, my kid, then I would like let them get like social media at like 11. But like I wouldn't like look through their phone because that's like annoying. But I would just like talk to them like once in a while just to make sure they're like being safe online and just not posting any things that they wouldn't want on forever. Just like I would just like talk to them, but I wouldn't like search through their phone.
So I don't know what the generation below you is called, but how? What?
There's no name yet.
Oh, well, like how do you feel about them? Like, what is like your take on the generation below you?
Are you talking about babies or like third graders?
I guess like third graders or like, you're in 8th grade, so like what about like the 5th and 6th graders? Like what do you think of them?
They're really annoying and they're like bratty. But like, can I talk? No. But I was probably like that too, but they just seem really like annoying and like childish and just like ugh.
Do you feel like the generation below you is different than yours?
I mean, maybe like minor, is that a word? Minorly, smallly, but like we were probably like that when we were their age as well. But there's like probably some minor differences, but not really.
Basically, the Earth is dying. Are you guys scared for the future?
Yeah, definitely. Just a little bit.
What do you think of the idea of moving to Mars?
I'm down with that. I was going to say, sounds pretty logical with me. I heard, the one thing though, is I heard that the gravity is a little bit different, so I think that it's a little stronger or less strong. I don't know how big Mars is compared to Earth.
No water?
Okay, but besides that, there's something, but like, if we all went there, then it would like shrink our spines, something like that. I don't know, that sounds a little scary with me, I'm gonna be honest. But, in concept, not bad.
So, like, if you're doing like an interactive experience, what are your favorite things to interact with? Like things with screens or like things where you can talk to other people?
I think the advancement of technology has allowed us to do more stuff with screens, which is really fun, but I think human presence will always be more enjoyable than anything on screens.
I agree, but I think that also in terms of interactiveness, there's definitely an educational component with screens that can be a benefit in schools. So I guess it depends what you mean by interactive component.
So would you like consider yourselves Gen Z?
Yes.
Okay. So like think back to like when you were like at the playground. Did you find it easy to interact with and like talk to new kids and make friends, or the opposite?
I think it was pretty easy.
I think it was pretty easy, but as we get more dependent on screens, I think that's going to change in the future.
What are some games you enjoy playing?
Like on my phone?
Just in general.
Monopoly. I like playing Mario Kart, and I like playing Just Dance, and I like playing card games.
What were some of your favorite things to do on a playground?
The monkey bars, for sure.
The swings.
Why? Is it because like you interacted with other kids, or like it was just like a fun thing to do?
Well, sometimes I like sit on top of the monkey bars and just like talk to random kids, but I also like playing on the monkey bars.
I like the swings because it's always like, it's like depressing. You just like sit there and you just swing when you're depressed.
So it's like therapeutic.
Yeah.
So when you were younger and you were at the playground, did you find it easy to make new friends while you were there?
No, I would scare kids away.
I didn't really talk to people because I don't know, but yeah,
I was very
not.
antisocial.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think of the fact that we might be moving to Mars?
I think it's cool.
Really?
It's like a new world. Ooh la la.
I think it'd
Fancy.
be cool.
And there's less people, so we have more space. We can split it up, and people could be more spread out, and it should be lit.
Can meet new people.
We can see the aliens.
Yeah, really cool.
We can communicate with them and make up a language and just be besties with the aliens.
Besties with the aliens, yeah, definitely.
Do you find it scary that the Earth might be dying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I'm not gonna be alive when that happens, but sucks for my kids and my kids' kids, I guess.
Yeah.
Sucks for them.
After interviewing our demographic, we thought it would be a good idea to go to the Camp Store in New York City, which is a toy store that has many fun interactive experiences and activities and games. So hi again, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Isabella.
How long have you been working here?
I've been working here for about 2 months now.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you interact with kids a lot.
Yes.
So what would you say that the ranges of the ages of kids that you work with are?
So it depends on the day and it depends on the activities that we do here. But I would say anything from 6 months to 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you say the kids like to interact most with?
Well, in activities, really, they just like to color a lot. Coloring's always really good. But yeah, no, just keeping them engaged and keeping them really into it.
They made us turn the camera off, so we weren't able to get much else after that. But I was able to sneak in one more little thing.
1 second. Are you guys coming to the magic door? Okay, we have our grown-up. Okay, are we feeling magical? No? How are we gonna open the door? We're gonna feel a little bit magical. Maybe we'll warm up our magic hands. Warm up your magic hands. Uh-oh, how are we gonna open it? Look, without the magic, we can't open it at all. Oh, you are feeling magic. Go ahead in.
After that, we conducted interviews with the cameras off, and we asked about life on Mars and interaction with children and what they think the future holds. And basically, the consensus was that yes, we are moving into a dangerous position, but many of the employees had a lot of optimism for the future based on what they can see from the children they work with. After that, we decided to interview adults. Because I guess you're a little bit older than our demographic, which is kids and Gen Z, I just want to know, what is your opinion on Generation Z and their use of technology?
Well, during my time in high school, I watched the transformation before. So I graduated in 2013, and back then Facebook was the thing, and now it's kind of not. And it really transitioned during those few years. iPhones weren't as widespread. Not even everybody had a smartphone when I was starting high school. People said Razors and the last generation of flip phones. A lot of people had that, and I watched the change happen, and I think it's really had some profound effects on society, because people I go out in a restaurant and I see a party of 4 people sitting at a table with food in front of them, and they're all just staring at their phone and doing their own individual thing, even though they're with each other. And it's not just when you're in an office or when you're working or when you're in class or whatever. People say, let's go out for a good time, let's go out to the bar, let's go out to whatever, let's go out to the restaurant. And they do that all the time. And it's just all anybody does. And it's well, where did social life go?
So my next question is kind of more abstract. What do you think of the status of Earth as it is now and the probability of us moving to Mars or anywhere in space?
Whoa. I think there's a great level of opportunity in going to Mars. I think that's a really, really cool idea. It's a fun idea. It's a fun idea, certainly, and it's something that people have thought about for a long time. I think it is possible. We've built amazing things. If you went back 150, 200 years, they would say, how do you make this electric light, railroad that goes, a steam engine. We've come with so much technology. It's definitely possible. We could definitely do it. And I think it's going to be really fun when, instead of taking vacations from New York to Florida, maybe you take a vacation from New York to Mars for a week when it's spring break. That'll be really cool.
What do you think an interactive experience should be? What would be an exciting interactive experience for you? If you're in a museum or at the park.
If you were your age and also if you were younger, what would you want to do? Right?
Am I supposed to project
perfect.
Younger today or younger when I was?
Either, yeah.
And so what's an interesting interactive experience?
Yeah, what's a cool thing that you would think of? If you had to maybe design an interactive experience, or if you've been to an interactive experience, what's something that you enjoy personally?
One of the best parts of an interactive experience is the element of surprise, in that you don't know what you're going to expect. You go into a museum and you have this idea of what a museum is, what the experience is like. You're going to look at a bunch of interesting artifacts in a vitrine and read about their history. And then when you pass through a hall like that and you go to a new room and it's an experiential model of a place where a piece of history happened, with an animatronic that makes that moment come to life again, and you can live it, and you didn't think that was going to happen. It's not so much the experience of being there in that moment coming to life, it's the fact that you didn't expect it. That's what's so great. Because if someone says, let's go to this place where there's a bunch of animatronics to make things come to life, it will be less cool than when you go somewhere not expecting that and it occurs. So definitely keeping that element of unusual, interesting experiential design that isn't necessarily obvious on the outside from what it is.
So well, actually, you're the perfect person to ask about this because you're on TikTok. So the generation right now is super into TikTok and just instant gratification and that kind of thing. So what is your take on Generation Z? Because I'm sure you see a lot of them when you're scrolling through.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. I first went on TikTok because I wanted to get a sense of what the younger generation was like, and it was incredibly cringy, I would say. And then I started making videos, and I was like, this is so easy. I can just become TikTok famous and get money from these Gen Zers. And I have a sister who's 18, so she's a freshman in college. And I was like, hey, can you tell your friends to follow me on TikTok? And she's like, I don't even know what that is. None of my friends have it. You're crazy. And I realized that it was even the generation below them, people in high school right now, and what they were looking at. So it's interesting to see what they liked. I felt like they all were wanting to be consumed by other people's lives. I feel our generation is really into Kim, we have Jeffrey. Everybody has their somebody that they idolize, but theirs has become so much more tech oriented. And I feel it's more them just wanting to see everyday people in their lives and things that are interesting or weird, and fast paced. The biggest thing on the app personally is things that are fast paced. A lot of videos that I make, I have to speed up and I have to add really thrilling music, and those will get a bunch of views. But if I do something that's I've actually put work into and really love, it'll get no views. And I think it just depends.
So do you think the content that kids are consuming is affecting how they act and how they live their daily lives?
100%. It's completely changing the way that they honestly do everything. I feel even children's development, it's being stunted within the classroom because a child is wanting to play on an iPad instead of going outside or something. And even if you're walking around a mall, there's a bunch of 13-year-olds and they have iPhone 11s. And it's crazy to think that their parents spend that amount on them and they have the most updated one, and B, that they've somehow convinced their parents to do that. So there must be some way, I don't know, maybe they were screaming or something, but it's just so wild to think about that a lot of things just aren't cutting it these days, and they just need to be faster and faster, and everything needs to be instant.
I don't know if you have an opinion on this, but in that case, what do you think the parents' role should be? What do you think the parents should do?
That's a very tough question. My mom is a child developmental psychologist, and she has like a school for children with autism. And so, like growing up, I spent a lot of time there, and they had to be stimulated. And we talked a lot to the parents. Like there were also kids that weren't autistic, but the way that they were both developing was really interesting because the like children in the regular classroom, they were like still like asking to be on the iPad just as much as the other classroom. But we also had to talk to the parents because a lot of when you go home, like the school can only do so much. A lot of it stems from the parents and their beliefs. I feel like even like us growing up, like our parents saw the evolution of the phone. So they like, I was never really able to play on an iPad. I didn't get like my first computer until 11th grade, or no, actually maybe it was like 9th grade. Because it was more about like, well, let's go do something. And I feel like the next generation is changing, and instead of like crying to go outside so they can play, it's I'm gonna cry so I can get the iPad. And I think it also begins with like teachers and like the things that you send your kids home with and to school with. So I think it plays like a part equally in terms of just like educating the parents. But also it's difficult because you can understand if your child is screaming, you're gonna try to calm them down as much as you can. So you're gonna be giving them the iPad, you're gonna be giving them what they want, because all parents wanna do is make their kids happy. And when they're changing what they want to something that's like instant gratification of, watching a TV show or something like that, we aren't gonna know what the outcome is until those children grow up. I mean, maybe like they're all gonna have bad vision by 20 because they've got like had so much like blue light. I don't know if the science makes sense that way, but we just don't know.
Do you think that because kids are so attached to technology that it will like affect their ability to step up as leaders of the world in the future?
Well, I think we have such a prime example of how technology is important in becoming a leader because of Donald Trump, and how just through social media and outlets of technology's outlets can actually be instrumental. But in the future, I think it would affect, I hope it would affect like curiosity in kids, in younger kids, and curiosity into like truth and meaning and and how that could be present in technology. That's what I'm thinking. But in terms of how technology is used in kids' lives right now and how I hypothesize that would affect their way of thinking in general, I just hope that they're not completely detached from the real physical world.
So, hi guys.
Hi.
So my question for you is, because like Generation Z is going to be like the future, and there are future leaders and future presidents of, I guess, like the nearing years, like how do you, like where do you think the future is headed to? Are you worried? Are you nervous? Are you like...
You have to be a little more specific.
Like Generation Z, like in the last film I did, you were talking about how like, they're too attached to their phones, like, they don't know how to socialize. They're like not as like real world smart. So like, would you say you're like nervous about them being the leaders of the future?
Well, I'll start because there are about 2 or 3 very important things that are going to happen that Generation Z is going to have to decide upon. And the first is the incredible dynamic around data, because everybody doesn't realize how much information is known about them. So with that, the question is, how is that used with both artificial intelligence and machine learning? But on the other hand, how does the Generation Z control the privacy? Because Europe has just begun trying to control the use of data and privacy, which is what's called GDPR. California is now thinking about how to increase those kind of privacy regulations. And the next step is going to be throughout the latter part, middle 2020 2025, 2030, what is done with data and how is its privacy protected?
I'm not optimistic about that.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is what's going to be incredible. Once data is, however it's controlled, is artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the kinds of things that will be done in society as a result of that. The one example that you have today is Alexa, and that will be extrapolated to a very significant degree in using audio in every part of your life, not just in homes, but in cars. And with that, self-driving vehicles will be a big deal. Drones will be a big deal. So the world of technology, I look at as very exciting that this is the next wave of what I call the technology industrial revolution, from my perspective. And you will still be stuck on your phones.
So my next question is, because there is climate change and like the earth is kind of like deteriorating, there is a lot of talk about like people moving to Mars. Do you think that's like a plausible idea, or do you think that's like completely unrealistic, or like what do you think of the whole idea?
Well, given the change in the Earth's atmosphere and the climate in general, it's really scary. You're seeing fish die off. There's an article today about Thailand and Southeast Asia trying to not reprocess, but use like metals, and I mean there's just so much garbage that's thrown into the ocean, and it's really scary. I mean, it's scary when fish start dying and ice starts melting. So it's something that needs to be taken seriously and action taken quickly, and doesn't really feel like, I feel like there's a lot of conflict even within the United States in terms of how to handle that. So that's something that's pretty scary. We've never in our lifetime seen governments with this much chaos, and it's happening not just in the U.S. but throughout Europe and other areas where you see dictators. Well, not dictators, the wrong word, but the far right, and then very extreme sides of the left. There just seems to be no middle ground. So there's something going through a society on a global basis it's very unusual. And you'd hope that we'd get back to some kind of centrist point of view where more moderate heads prevail. I'm going to try to be the negative person here.
Well, it's also driven by the haves and the have-nots. Is that how many people are in a very bad situation in poverty, whether you use the Middle East, whether you use Africa, whether you use any part of the world in Asia, that there are very, very extreme levels of poverty, and on the other hand you have wealth, and how the two are in chaos, and that added to now you have environmental problems. It's going to be really interesting how technology is even possible to save the resources, where water is going to be scarce, and it's going to be a very interesting dynamic of the survival. And I think that's going to be, this is about Generation Z, those are the people that are the most concerned and the most striving of this now, as opposed to the older generation of baby boomers.
Well, the most important thing is education, and how you can educate people. I mean, education is the key to getting people out of poverty, to giving them hope, to changing things in the world. So you'd think with technology and online courses and more ways to reach people that it would be easier to have a better education, and hopefully that will be the case at some point.
We really hope you enjoyed the interviews. We definitely learned a lot and got a lot of good information from many different people. Thank you for watching.